got a presentation of about 20 minutes, and it's got a couple of embedded films, so we're always worried about whether the tech's going to work or not. So introductory slide, just a couple of pictures of different participatory budgeting programs that have happened over the last few years, some of them going back many years, and this nice quote, which I think kind of frames why PB is a bit different to other engagement processes. The truth about our aspirations isn't found in our vision, it's found in our budget. And that kind of speaks to the sort of very real sort of the reality that when we start talking about money, people's ears tend to prick up, and money is very much linked to power and community power that is obviously core to pride in place areas. So a little bit about myself. I've introduced myself briefly. I've been working since 2000. So in 2000, I had the privilege of visiting Porto Alegre in Brazil to learn a bit about participatory budgeting, and I got really switched on then. And since then, I've been supporting people to explore what participatory budgeting is and find new ways of doing it. And through my work at Shared Future and previously, I produced a wide range of free resources on PB, which are all on our website. And I run a number of networking capacity building projects over time, including at the moment one on climate themed participatory budgeting. And Shared Future more widely, as Rowan introduced, also does citizens, juries, and assemblies. So those are deliberative processes, and we've run about 40 of those across the UK. We started out as a social enterprise. Shared Future is a social enterprise running social economy or social enterprise projects, so supporting people to develop projects in their own community. And we work across the UK, although I personally am based in Manchester, and that's where we're registered as a CIC, but a lot of our directors and associates and Rowan are all spread across the northwest of England. A little bit about participatory budgeting. It's a big mouthful, participatory budgeting. I don't know if anybody has done lots of it or not, but I always say the first lesson is to not call it participatory budgeting. So I'm going to refer to it as PB through most of this session. So as a community engagement technique, it started in Porto Alegre in Brazil sometime in the 1980s and spread worldwide, certainly up until today. It's still happening in many different systems and societies at very different scales, but it started to begin in the UK around 2005. And the images in the picture, one is from a Brazilian PB process. Then the next picture on the right of that is, in fact, the first strategy for PB in the UK, which was launched under New Labour in 2008 and ran till about 2012. So we've got a long history of successful PB programs. And the third one is one of our resources, grant making through participatory budgeting, which you'll be welcome to download after this session if it's of use. Across the UK, as I said, it started in England and Wales, supported by DCLG, but particularly in the last few years, the sort of leading area for participatory budgeting has been in Scotland, and it's great to see some people from Scotland here, and hopefully maybe in the discussion you can put in some of your learning from those processes. So it ran under the Community Choices banner initially, still being used as a name in Scotland quite regularly. And some of the learning from that process, which looked to try and upscale and embed PB within all sorts of ways of working of local authority budgets, is that shifting power over money can be quite hard. But there have been many small-scale PB processes delivered across the UK over many years. And more recently in Scotland and elsewhere, there's been a move towards a thematic form of PB. So that might be PB with children and young people. It might be climate-themed PB, PB within social housing, police, health. All these different sectors have used PB in one form or another over the last 25 years. And we always find that videos are a great way to find out a little bit about PB. So I'm going to share one now, which is actually from Scotland, and it was produced a few years ago by the Church of Scotland. And it's a nice little short 2-minute animation that sort of explains what is PB.
Do you ever wonder who decides how money is spent in your community? Do you think people should have a bigger say in local spending decisions? Participatory budgeting, or PB for short, is a way to put the decisions about where money is spent into the hands of local people. Here's how it works. A pot of money is provided by the local authority, another public sector body such as the police, or from another source with links to the local area. Community groups and organisations are then invited to come up with ideas for how they would use some of this money. All the ideas are shared and everyone has a chance to take part in deciding how it should be spent. This could be done at an event where different groups explain what they could do with some of the money, and everyone has a chance to vote. Members of the community decide, and everyone knows what has been decided. PB encourages people to think carefully about a variety of proposals and to consider the views of others. It demonstrates what other people are doing locally and provides people with the chance to choose projects that they believe will benefit their community. The whole process is transparent and everyone is held accountable. After the decision has been made, the projects are monitored and evaluated to make sure they meet the needs of the whole community. PB is creative and fun and allows people to interact with their neighbours and communities. It allows local people to feel empowered and creates a space where community groups can support each other with volunteers, equipment and fresh ideas. Communities can learn new skills in fundraising, financial decision making and budgeting. PB demonstrates the difficulty of choosing between competing priorities with limited resources, but empowers individuals to make these choices. PB is about sharing responsibility, generating mutual respect within the community, and enhancing local democracy.
So, a little video, in fact, made by the Church of Scotland, because it was encouraging parishes across Scotland to adopt PB as part of their work within their communities. And I'd like to give thanks to them and also the PB Scotland website, where that was hosted for a long time. A little bit of a definition of participatory budgeting. This actually goes back to the initial first wave of PB in England, and participatory budgeting, or PB, is the process of directly involving local people in making decisions on the priorities and spending for a defined amount of the public budget. Quite a kind of lengthy phrase, but I think it's the key words for me is directly involving local people. So this is different to a consultation where you might develop a vision with local people, or you might ask them what their priorities are. This is about actually making decisions on the spending and priorities. And in this case, that's Pride in Places money. And we were really pleased to see within the guidance that has come out around Pride in Place that community power is a really big thing. And in particular, that techniques such as we do at Shared Future, such as deliberative democracy, so deliberative engagement, such as citizen assemblies or residence panels or forums, are part of that guidance, but also that delivering participatory budgeting using in-person or digital tools to involve the community in spending decisions is also PB. And if anybody of you read the blog I wrote, I sort of said that in some ways all of Pride in Places is a form of participatory budgeting. Embedded deep within it is the idea that everything that is done by program boards should in some way be based on what local people say they want and need in their communities. And we often use this graphic. Some people may have seen it before. This is actually a commissioning cycle, which explains the different phases of a PB process, but it links it to how procurement is often done within health services to build well-being or in any public procurement exercise. And it really begins with designing a process. That is bringing together a group of people who are going to take responsibility and shape how this process is going to unroll. And then you move into informing and engaging, and in particular, engaging with residents, but you may also be wanting to engage with an expert board or with people with understanding about how to make interventions within a community that has got loads of needs within it. And as part of that informing and engaging process, you may actually begin to set your priorities, identify where there are particular gaps. And it's often easy to see within particularly those sorts of left behind or socially unequal places that are the target of pride in place. It's often obvious what some of those gaps are, but it's really important to get under the skin of that and really understand what local people's priorities are rather than what the problems are. You can then move into a phase of developing investment proposals. This is investment money, although it will be running over 10 years, ideally. Fundamentally, this is regeneration and renewal work. And so there will be a set of investments that will be planned, and there will be a process to decide how that money is going to be then used, or which of the different options that have come forward are going to be invested in. You'll move back to a delivery of projects. That could be by getting contractors in to fill in potholes, bringing in people to help design a new urban environment or landscape, whatever it might be, you'd be moving into that delivery phase. And every project, given that this is public money, there will be an oversight and monitoring function, an audit function. Certainly the government will want to know how its money is being used. And then critically, that process finishes through evaluation and learning. Actually, have we tackled the problems we set out to do, and what other problems emerge? And that cycle continues and goes. And really, PB is challenging you to ask the questions at each of those processes, at each of those stages. How do we ensure that there is community-based or community-led activity? So how are residents involved in designing how to roll out pride in places? How are they involved in oversight and monitoring? Can they get involved in the delivery of projects? And so it's about trying to change that culture of doing to places towards a culture of doing with. I talked a lot about what PB might be, but really within a UK context, there's two fundamental forms. The first one is participatory grant making, and that is where proposals are made by members of the community for delivery within the community, maybe at an event, maybe through an online platform, and people are then asked to vote on which they want to go forward. And then that money is dispensed to those community-based organisations. Lots of conversations about who is in the community, what is the community, who can vote, can people 12 years old vote in these processes? What are the controls and restrictions? So within that very simple process, there's quite a lot of design and a lot of different ways to run participatory grant making processes. And some of them are very, very small, just distributing £500, £1,000, £2,000 to groups. But some of them get to considerable scale, such as the Just Transitions PB in Scotland, where they've been spending £1 million per year over the last 3 years on hundreds of projects that will benefit people to make that just transition to a new reality when climate change really starts to bite. There's also the mainstream PB. That's what's being used in most places in the UK. And that's really about the delivery happening by local government, happening by contractors, happening by the agencies, and it's both investment money, capital money in new things, but also in new services. And those they may be best placed. It may be better to deliver through established bodies like that. And then in that case, PB is really about how to make sure that those services and investments are shaped by citizens, particularly by people in pride in place areas. And the picture at the bottom is actually an example from Durham many years ago where they developed a kind of participatory game in order to do that vision setting for how local investments should be made. And one of the critical factors is you can do both. It's really important to continue with the PB grant making because it brings people to the process. But whilst they're connected to that process, you can use them to have those deeper conversations about what our forward vision might be and what those larger expenditures that will come online in future years, how they are going to be used. So in my blog, which I wrote a little while ago, and I'll share a link to it if you haven't read it, when we send out resources at the end of this session, I gave 10 ideas about how you might start off building participation, particularly participatory budgeting, into a Pride in Place program. So the first thing is to not rush to spend. That's the biggest danger, is that we start to kind of shape what we're going to do very early on. But actually, it's really worth taking time to establish inclusive and democratic structures. And that might be using ideas from citizens' assemblies and deliberation, actually recruiting a residents board that is not just made up of people who generally come to processes like this, but are actually randomly selected, stratified to match the diversity of a particular community and use them as a sounding board or as part of that design process. Secondly, to adopt community power principles to guide your engagement. There's many charters out there or community development principles. PB, we've got our own. I know in Scotland, they also developed their own PB Charter for Scotland. So again, on our website, we've got a set of suggested values, principles, and standards that might enable participatory budgeting to be embedded in your community. We're really passionate about community-led research. We do some of these projects ourselves, and that might be upskilling local people to go out and talk to other local people and then collecting that evidence and data. It's a great way of reaching out. So consider how you might embed community research as one of the principles within your Pride in Place programme. We had the privilege of working with Greater Manchester, the Live Well programme there, and they produced a participation playbook, which included quite some great case studies on how community-led research or reporting has been developed. It's really important in any process to really build deliberation to get beyond individualized wants. People do come with needs to these processes. It's really important to get them together. Some of the mechanisms in PB, such as multiple voting, so you can't just vote for one idea, you have to spread your votes, forces some of that deliberation, but building space in for people to meet, talk, and learn from each other is really critical. And finally, on this first 5, learn from where real participatory budgeting has worked. There are thousands of examples globally, certainly hundreds within the UK, and lots of resources out there. So go out and find out how other people are approaching this, whether it's about how to move online, whether it's about how to reach out to people in the community who have barriers to their participation. It's really important to establish measures of success, including qualitative measures, and by that I mean the stories and the sort of emotional impacts of what's happened within the communities. Remember critically that small amounts of funding can bring extra rewards. For every pound spent through a participatory grant making process, you can guarantee that there will be somebody volunteering, somebody who's passionate. So it's a really great way of maximizing the impact of your limited funds, particularly in the early years. setting up a very small participatory grant-making process in year 1 or year 2 is a really great way to build knowledge and experience for when those larger amounts of money come on board. It's really important to get beyond the sticking plaster approach and focus on prevention. I think it's been a challenge for the whole 25 years I've been involved in urban regeneration and renewal programs, is that we continually try and fill in the potholes, try and find demand-led solutions rather than supply-led solutions. So how do we build on the assets in our communities and empower our communities to take ownership and responsibility for their problems, their needs, their wants, rather than it being delivered externally? And just because we do a lot of work in the climate change and adaptation world, I think given this is a 10-year program, some of those coastal communities that are really core to a lot of the Pride in Place program, but all sorts of communities are seeing the effects of climate change already, whether it's in extreme weather events, in flooding, in fuel poverty. So think about how you future-proof climate into your processes. And finally, to connect with other funding, build that legacy. And we're really inspired that the National Lottery Community Fund, for example, is moving towards a sort of PB, a You Decide program, for a considerable amount of its funding. So always think about how you're building your legacy and scaling out your work. I'm going to show one final short film, just a PB process, actually from Northern Ireland, and it's about 4 minutes, 5 minutes.
We're just welcoming people, we're registering them, and really we are asking them, are they bidders, are they voters?
We're inviting them in to vote for what they want to see in their community.
So when they come in, they're to sit down at one of the tables, and then after the welcome and getting people doing a little bit of getting to know each other, there's going to be 16 pitches of 2 minutes each, and then voting will be opened, and they're going to go into the canteen and place their 5 votes. They have to distribute their 5 votes. They cannot put them all in one pot. And after that, get some tea, coffee, refreshments, and then voting will close. We will count the votes, and then there'll be an announcement of who's got the money and who hasn't.
This is for our community, and to have so many people involved is absolutely fantastic.
Turn to the person on your right, shake them by the hand and say, hello, how you doing? Go.
Tonight is around not binning our voices, not binning the great ideas in Harpashill and Crossley. Each person will have 2 minutes.
Your time starts now.
Great to see actually so many parents from the community coming out, because this obviously means something to them. So hopefully down the line this will leave a wee bit of a legacy, and we can follow it on up in our own community association later on, maybe next year as well.
And it's not easy standing up here, you know. See, maybe it's a bit easier for David and I, we've done this before, but people who stand up there in front of the camera, in front of their friends, you know, and it can be nerve-wracking.
It's a good time when you start putting chairs out. That's always a good sign when you have to actually bring more chairs and
Might need more buttons.
Yes, we ran out of buttons. I think it's going very well. Yes, yeah. All good.
Well, I've lived here all my life. I've been, what, many years? 40 years now. It's nice to be part of it. Be back in school.
It's very good. It's very good for people to have their say and to put forward their ideas.
It's good for the community.
Yeah, it's great, sure. It's good attendance. I didn't really realise that all these people would turn up to it, but it's greatly supportive.
Everyone has 5 votes. The voting station is in there. Remember, distribute your 5 votes. Do not put your 5 votes in one pot.
Great. So many people voting.
It's just a really nice atmosphere. It's just, this is community.
we're just counting the buckets. I scrutinised. We had our observers down the voting table, and nobody cheated.
So what happens next is the guys who won will get the money to do the idea, and we're going to come back together about the end of September, early October, as a group of people, as a community, to hear how the projects went.
Feeling great. We won this. Hopefully we can start getting the men together and maybe put a wee pull team together and a darts team together and help us socialise together. Keep things going and bring a community together even more.
We feel brilliant, we're delighted, aren't we?
Oh, delighted,
We're
absolutely
delighted.
delighted that we
didn't think we'd get it, we thought there was a lot of deserving people, so we thought it was brilliant, didn't we?
Very, very glad.
And we're looking forward to starting up a wee club. Big dish out!
Great evening. Yeah. Yeah, I think it kind of ticked all the boxes that we wanted to tick in terms of people kind of realising that how they changed their minds when they heard people, and that was really supportive and all kinds of ages, so it was great.
Enjoyable evening, definitely. The response from the crowd's great. You get the feedback. From my point of view, you get a feedback from the crowd. You feed off it. You know what I mean? And if they're enjoying themselves, I enjoy myself. Making them enjoy yourself if you get any sense out of that.
Fantastic success. Just thrilled. They're quite moving. Lumps in their throat at some points and all, you know. And on to the next one.
Really enjoyed the evening. It was great fun. So it was. It's great getting everybody together.
It's just such a buzz in the place, you know, and everybody's come out very excited.
Big dish out.
So, I'm going to move us straight in from that. That's the end of my presentation. We're not going to do any questions at this moment. We're just going to go straight into some breakout groups. I hope, Rowan, we're ready to do that. We're just going to randomly put you in. And I've got 2 questions. Obviously, you can discuss whatever you like. I'll pop in and out of some of those groups if you need help. But basically, for 10 minutes, what barriers might prevent PB being adopted in a Pride in Place area or a similar programme to Pride in Place? And then what could be a useful approach, if anything, to overcoming those barriers?